Hey, what is up, everybody? If you don't know who I am, hey, I'm Wirt. I've been playing Elestrals longer than pretty much everybody except the people at Elestrals. I made the TTS mod, so I was the first person outside Elestrals to actually play their game. Now, with that being said, I've been playing almost a year, and there's a few things that I wanted to go over for a lot of you new players coming to the game. A lot of people now getting their cards, and that's what this video is. We're just going to go 5 things I wish I knew before I started playing the game. So starting with number one, this game, as well as many other trading card games, is a game about resource management. Now, when I say this, it's pretty straightforward for most people who've come from other TCGs, but every resource counts in Elestrals, as do other TCGs, but when your resource is also your life, you have to be aware that those 2 spirits you spend on turn 1 are pretty much just as relevant as the 2 spirits you spend on turn 7 or turn 8, your last 3 spirits. Knowing what to expend, when to expend, what your game plan is going forward, like casting 3 Nectar of the Gods on turn 1 is going to feel great because you have all these options, but you just went to 14 life. You're at half your life by the end of turn 1 to see a few extra cards. That's not always worth it because you can't play all those cards every turn if they're Elestrals. So you want to make sure that you're really focusing on how much you're spending each turn and what your outcomes you're trying to achieve with what you're spending. If you're playing Nectar of the Gods, are you just playing Nectar of the Gods to see more options, or is there a key card you're looking for that you're missing? Pay attention to what you need in the moment and be aware that just because you have 20 spirits at the start of the game, spending 10% of them for a Nectar of the Gods or Drops of Leaf or some other card without actually progressing your board state can be detrimental for you in the late game, where it's all of a sudden, well, oh man, if I had one more spirit, I could have won the game, and I have 7 cards in hand, I just couldn't cast them because I'm missing a proper spirit to cast my eruption or something. So be aware of your resource management early and often, not just when you get low on spirits or because you have to misenchant something. Use reactive cards to kind of hold up your answers so you don't have to spend spirits proactively all the time to do things, and really focus on that resource management. That's really important in Elestrals, more so than a lot of other TCGs, just because it's tied so closely to your life and your win condition. Alright, and then number 2 is, unfortunately, 3-drops aren't very good. Now in a bubble, they're amazing. They can win you a game. Don't get me wrong there. A good 3-drop at the right time can absolutely destroy your opponent and win you the game single-handedly. The issue with 3-drops, though, is they are expensive and take a lot of cards to put into play, making them basically expensive on both your resource and expensive on your cards in hand. If you normal ascend to them, you're going through a 1-drop that you have to spend, you're going through a 2-drop you have to spend, and then you play a 3-drop on top of it. That's 3 cards from your hand and 3 spirits. Your opponent's answers to your 3-drops are usually going to be things like Boom Bat, which is a 1-card, 1-cost Celestial that will blow it up. There is Earthquake, which is a 1-card, 2-spirit cost card that will blow it up, basically netting you -2 to your hand compared to your opponent and minus on spirits. Or they Poison Tipped Arrow, meaning you lose your Elestral at the cost of your opponent taking a little bit more spirit damage, but generally you just lost 3 cards for 1 card. That's really relevant and unfortunately makes 3-drops really risky to run. If you do want to play 3-drops, you can. There are decks that will win you the game with 3-drops. You just need to make sure you're setting up your 3-drops in a way that will either protect them, like Voltempest with Zeus, or maybe a Majesty with a Bag of Winds and a Trident behind it. Be aware that if you just run out your 3-drops willy-nilly just because you can get into play, it's not going to last very long. And really try to focus on 3-drops that you can get into play with kind of cheaty methods, either all in one turn or a turn early through a lot of the 2-drop Ascension lines. A popular play is playing Tadpuff with its ability for a special, and then using Poseidon to put a Water Spirit onto it, casting Majesty now onto the Tadpuff for your normal, and then protecting with Bag of Winds and Trident Poseidon. So there's options for 3-drop decks, but if you look at your 3-drop and say the only way I'm getting this out is either by using Golden Apple Discord to discard it and rise it from my Underworld, or I'm sacking all my cards to do it, it's probably not worth it. Make sure if you're going for those 3-drop decks that you really kind of find a way to keep your 3-drop alive. And it will win you the game if you can keep it alive. That's the hard part. The game is very back and forth, so 3-drops are risky and kind of dangerous and will lose you a lot of games if you play them incorrectly. So watch out on your 3 drops. Alright, number 3. 2 mechanics are super important that everyone forgets about. Misenchanting your Elestrals and being able to draw a card instead of casting an Elestral on your turn. So let's start with the misenchanting thing. So if you have a Necrof in your hand and you only have, let's say, Thunder Spirits left in your deck, you can still play that Necrof as a 5/1 attacker with no ability with the Thunder Spirit. Spirits are more like suggestions in Elestrals for the cost of Elestrals. So if you play your Necrof, you play Thunder Spirit on it, yeah, it doesn't have an ability, but hey, it gets over Iceros now. Or maybe you play with a Water Spirit, so hey, it's immune to Tsunami now. Misenchanting for just to get a card into play because you're out of other spirits, or misenchanting to get over card effects. So there's 4 cards in the game that are pretty relevant in the general meta that are all really powerful that all get countered by using a spirit of the right element. Again, I mentioned Tsunami and I mentioned Iceros, which also have Sorlet. You play a card with a Wind Spirit on it, Sorlet can't affect it. So if it's, again, let's say a Necrof with a Wind Spirit on it, that Sorlet can't just turn it to defense and trade over it for free. It now has to crash into that Necrof because they both have the same attack. And then you have Eruption. You play something with a Fire Spirit on it that doesn't need a Fire Spirit because your opponent's playing a burn deck. Well, now the Eruption's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt you. So misenchanting, very important. Please don't forget about it. It will win you games. It will save your life. It's a great mechanic. Use it. And then the second mechanic I mentioned, drawing instead of casting an Elestral. So instead of normal casting for turn, you can expend 1 from your deck and draw a card. That's actually really, really powerful because I'm going to put an example out here actually. We have Nectar of the Gods. People say this is a great card. 2 costs, draw you 2, which means you're going to see 1 more card than you would have normally if you did not draw the Nectar of Gods. So if you did have the Nectar of Gods in your deck, you would have drawn a card. It would have been a card of some sort. And then you play Nectar of Gods. Instead of that, you now see 2 cards after the Nectar of Gods. So you're seeing a +1 to your hand. You're seeing 1 more card than you would have normally in a game. But what if you do that without using a card? You can just expend 1 to draw a card. You're not spending a card to do it. And you're spending less spirits to go +1. You're spending 1 spirit to go +1 versus 2 spirits to go +1. Expending for your turn if you can't normal cast something, or if you already are ahead in the board state and just want to get some more counter rune options or defensive options to protect your big board state, just draw for turn. You don't need to run out an Elestral every turn if you have the cards to deal with things. If you're running a control deck with like Rusting on Your Laurels and Shields and Gorgon's Gazes and such, a lot of the time with those decks, you just turn 1, expend to draw. Pass. And then next turn you'll do Laurels, so you'll just burn your, like, expending to draw is really, really good. You just need to make sure you're using it when you don't have options that are generally better. So play it by ear, but don't forget that you can draw a card if you need to by just expending 1 per turn, but then you won't be able to normal cast that turn or send. Be aware of that, but these 2 mechanics, misenchanting and drawing for turn, really, really useful to win games. Be aware that they're there. Remember them. They'll help you a lot. Number 4, resources, resources, resources. I don't mean resource management again. I'm talking use the resources in the community to help you with your deck building, learning the game, your strategy. Like if you go to our Discord right now, there's tons of channels to help you build your deck, talk about the rules, understand things better, play the game itself. Use those resources. There's fan-made websites like elestralsdb.com that you can help put together a deck or share decks with your friends or look at decks that are already there. If you don't know how to build a deck, and building a deck is very intimidating in Elestrals with 2 really important decks to focus on, being your Spirit deck and your main deck, use the resources in the community that you have to your disposal to learn the game faster, to help build your game or your deck better. When I started playing Elestrals, we just kind of said, well, here's 70 or so cards that they announced. Let's figure out how the game works and the mechanics work and the deck works, what works here, what makes a good deck here, what makes a bad deck there. And it took us months and months to really kind of figure out the game. You can figure out the game in an hour by talking to people in Discord. We know what we're generally talking about, and everyone's pretty inviting, so just ask questions. There's no dumb question. Just have fun, enjoy the game with that, and use the resources. And I say have fun, that's pretty much my number 5, is enjoy the game. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to play cards wrong, you're going to misinterpret how a card works, but just enjoy the game and have fun with it. If you were playing Elestrals completely wrong, but you're having fun with it, then that's the goal. If you're playing every single card in the wrong order, or you completely misunderstood how the rules work, or you just want to play Elestrals in your own unique way just to have fun, that's on you. Just enjoy the game how you want to be it. And I also want to say to veteran players, if you see a newer player making mistakes consistently, but they're small mistakes or minor mistakes, let it ride out. You know, let them enjoy their time and their thought process, because they might think they have a great plan that actually just barely doesn't work. Let them have their moment and then correct them after. You know, let people enjoy their strategy, their thought, their great ideas, and help them move on after to learn the game properly. Because as long as people are enjoying the learning process and enjoying the game while they're learning, that's the goal. If you can't enjoy the game until after you know how to play the game, no one's going to stick around to play the game. So make sure that veterans, you make the game inviting and enjoyable for everyone who's new, and new players expect a learning curve, but just make sure you're having fun while you're learning the game, because if you're not having fun while you're learning the game, it might not be fun for you after the fact. So just make mistakes. Know you're going to make mistakes, but revel in the thought process, having fun with those mistakes, and just enjoy. So that's the end of this video. Just a few things I wanted to mention there, and I hope something here helps somebody. I think the core takeaway is, hey, talk to the community. Go to our Discord, the community Discord, talk to people, find out more about the game, enjoy the game that way. We're always there having a good time. It's a pretty active Discord, so sometimes you might get lost in the sauce. Don't be afraid to ask questions a second or third time if you need to. And I'll see you on the Discord or in the next video. Have a great one, guys, and have a good one. I said that twice. Whoops.